Hey everybody, welcome back. This one, we're going down a rabbit hole. And not just any rabbit hole, a Star Trek rabbit hole.
Hello, Alice. Welcome to Wonderland.
If you could follow along, I'd really appreciate it. It is going to warp your mind. Star Trek has always been more than space adventures. Classic Trek, the original series, TOS, however you want to phrase it, used a very specific storytelling tool to examine our own world without ever saying it out loud. That tool is called Hodgkin's Law of Parallel Planetary Development.
They are creatures of a heavily industrialized 20th century type planet, very much like Earth. An amazing example of Hodgkin's law of parallel planet development. But on this Earth, Rome never fell. A world ruled by emperors who can trace their line back 2,000 years to their own Julius and Augustus Caesars.
It allowed the writers to show us Earth, our Earth, under the thin veil of a parallel planet that just happened to look and act exactly as ours.
The portion of land to water is exactly as on your Earth. Again, exactly like Earth. Complete Earth parallel. The language here is English. Never. Colloquial 20th century English. An amazing parallel.
A mirror, some might call it. A magnifying glass, others. Protected by the fiction that it's somewhere else. But what if that mirror, that magnifying glass, is showing us something we're not supposed to see clearly? What if the Federation isn't the utopia we're told it is, but Rome, reborn in space? Today, we're going to call that technique what it really is. Some call it plausible deniability. Others call it soft disclosure.
What? He obviously got the whole thing from his knowledge of the Stargate program.
Now, if the Air Force didn't want it to happen, they wouldn't have let it go this far.
Plausible deniability. In the event of a future breach of security, we'll be able to point to this television program.
The truth slipped in sideways, never stated outright, always deniable, yet impossible to unseat once you notice it. Already we saw Captain Kirk explaining it best. Hodgkin's law of parallel planetary development states that similar planets will develop similarly. The writers used this law as cover. They could show us Earth, our Earth, with all its flaws, empires, wars, and moral contradictions, and pretend it was just another planet the Enterprise happened to find.
Captain's log, stardate 4040.9. Uniformed police like those of Earth. A great city like Rome with automobiles. Astonishing similarities to 20th century Earth, down to the fine carbon steel in the bars.
And then the Next Generation episode, The Chase. Captain Picard's long-ago mentor in archaeology arrives. Professor Galen drops the truth like a disruptor blast that he will eventually have hit him in the chest.
You're like some Roman centurion out patrolling the provinces, maintaining a dull and bloated empire.
Calling him out as a space centurion patrolling a dull and bloated empire. He's crossed with Picard, not just because he's declining the invitation to join him now, but he declined him to be his protege in the past. Picard abandoned archaeology, the pursuit of uncomfortable truth, for Starfleet duty. He becomes the loyal officer, enforcing order across a vast, sprawling domain. Professor Galen wasn't wrong. Picard is a centurion. The Federation is Rome.
This'll be perfect. Real frontier medicine. I had my choice of any job in the fleet. The farthest reaches of the galaxy. One of the most remote outposts available. This is where the adventure is. This is where heroes are made. Right here in the wilderness.
This one you're going to need to follow along for the connection. Julian Bashir still believes in the old dream. I could have had any assignment in the fleet, but I chose here. This is where heroes are made in the wilderness. Deep Space Nine is the last edge, the last place where the frontier still exists. And who else ventured into the frontier? Who else made a name for himself? First there was Julius Caesar, and 2,500 years later, there's Julian Bashir. So this has gone all over the place. So how do we get from the Roman Empire to 24th or 23rd century Star Trek as the Federation being a Roman space? Before we go to that point, let me address, in the 23rd century, the Enterprise was a ship of exploration, not administrators. Classic Trek was out there on the frontier. Small crew, unknown dangers, moral decisions made on the spot. The Next Generation, it's the corporate office in space. Endless meetings, reports, admirals, policy, procedure. The Prime Directive goes from flexible guideline to rigid law. Some of you will argue, no, the Prime Directive has always been rigid. Was it? How many times? Even in the Deep Space Nine time travel episode where they go to Space Station K7, the temporal investigators even qualify Captain Kirk as a menace. So exploration in the 24th century becomes secondary to diplomacy and regulation. This is Rome after the conquest, no longer expanding outward with bold legions, but maintaining an empire through bureaucracy, oversight, and control. Now let's talk about the schism. I'm willing to bet most of you are already familiar with the Roman Empire being divided into the Western Empire, Eastern Empire, and the Western Empire falling in the middle of the 5th century, or near the end of the 5th century, in 476 AD. The eastern half of the Roman Empire, called Byzantium, continued for another 1,000 years. The power never vanished. So it went from Rome to Constantinople, or Istanbul, whichever one you want to call it now. So the power never vanished. It relocated and rebranded. But then what happened after Byzantium? Well, today, that power structure still continues in 3 modern city-states. Vatican City, which is inside Rome, is its own little independent state. It's the spiritual center, the moral authority that Rome once held. The Roman Empire, the seat of power of the Roman Empire in Rome was also the spiritual center, and that's been transferred to Vatican City specifically. London, England, there is a section that is referred to as the City of London. It's its own little weird city-state entity that even heads of state, even the British Crown, has to perform a specific act in order to enter that specific area designated City of London. And this represents the financial center, the banking and commerce. And I said that there's a third one, Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia. That is the Roman military and political center of our modern world. The enforcement arm. The same tripartite structure that kept Rome alive for centuries, spiritual Rome, financial London, military Washington, the empire never fell. It just learned how to go to warp 9. And if you still doubt the connection, look behind the Speaker of the House in the U.S. Congress. 2 fasces stand there. What's a fasce? It's the bundle of sticks that hold that are bound together and hold their battle axe. And that flanks the speaker, the House Speaker, when they're standing before Congress. It's the Roman symbol of authority and power. That same battle axe bundle that appears also on the Liberty dime. It's not a coincidence. It's a symbolic message of the quiet, unbroken line from Rome to today. And it's being transmitted in media, and in this case specifically, we're tracking Star Trek. And this is how it's progressing to the 23rd and 24th century. And that transmission is not accidental. If you still doubt the connection, and if you think this is all too on the nose, consider one of the most blatant examples of soft disclosure in modern science fiction. And I played you this clip already. In Stargate SG-1, the show itself becomes a show within a show, Wormhole Extreme, a ridiculous parody of Stargate, with the in-universe explanation that it's a cover story so the real program can hide in plain sight. Plausible deniability, soft disclosure is literally the line they use. The same trick Star Trek used for decades. Show the truth as fiction. So anyone who points it out can be dismissed as a conspiracy theorist. Science fiction has always been a vehicle for subtle revelations, truths too uncomfortable to state outright, slipped in sideways through allegory, parallel worlds, and plausible deniability. In the early 2000s, it was revealed that military psychological operation units were embedded inside domestic newsrooms, CNN, NPR, and others, actively shaping narratives under the guise of reporting. But that's not all. Tom Clancy, famous for his Jack Ryan and John Clark novels centered on CIA activity. Not only was he invited to speak at Langley, but when his novels were adapted to movies, CIA personnel were on set to advise. Oh, that's not all. That's just one example. Disney and other major studios have a long, documented history of collaborating with the government, the military, and intelligence services to create narratives that influence popular opinion. And I suspect that influence extends to Star Trek itself, whether by instructed design or as an effort at soft disclosure to inform the public. It was part of such an operation. The Roman Empire never fell. It simply learned how to go warp 9 and how to keep building roads into the stars of the 23rd and 24th centuries. Galen was right. Picard is a centurion. The Federation is Rome in space. The wilderness is gone. The corporate office has won. Soft disclosure. The dream of exploration has been replaced by the reality of administration. A republic or a federation, if you can keep it. But can we keep it when the system itself is the empire we were warned about?
Captain, my ships are leaving orbit for Romulan space till our next encounter.
Until then.
It would seem that we are not completely dissimilar after all, in our hopes or in our fears.
Yes.
Perhaps one day.
One day.